Started off the day a little tired and grumpy, but would you know, I'm not tired and grumpy anymore. Oh, I am tired today. Yesterday I drove a ton for me. I started out in Newport, Oregon, which is about halfway in the middle of the state of Oregon, right on the coast, and headed south. Today I'm in Crescent City, which is the kind of biggest city just across the border from Oregon into California. There's some small towns in between, but this is kind of the first big city. I think it's only about 230 some miles. I did do some hiking as well because I stopped at Cape Perpetua. Fantastic. So did a little bit of walking, did a little bit of hiking. I probably would feel worse if I didn't get out and walk a little bit, so I'm glad I took the time and did that there at Cape Perpetua, one of my favorite places to check out. But with all that driving, has me moving slowly this morning, but it's about 10 o'clock, so I gotta get up and get moving and doing more driving today. More driving. Hooray. Well, I'm quite sure that today I'm not going to be doing nearly as much driving as I did yesterday. I wouldn't be able to do that again. I like to drive, and I really enjoy driving, especially down the coast here up in the Pacific Northwest. It's just so incredibly beautiful. You've got the water, of course, and all the rocks that are off the coast, and then the trees on the other side. And, it's just fantastic, and it kind of encourages me and energizes me a little bit to keep going, but then after the day is done, I'm wore out. Unfortunately, I have to keep going, but like I said, won't be driving nearly as much today as I did yesterday because I just can't do that kind of thing anymore. This ended up being a nice place to park last night. I don't know Crescent City that well, but I have stayed here a few times, and it's always been a pleasant little city to hang out in. So I parked just a couple of miles from the waterfront, so I might as well just go down there and make my breakfast. I'm going to need something to give me a little boost of energy, so hopefully a burrito will do that. Oh, I forgot there was a Home Depot here and also a Harbor Freight. I need to get to one of those. Maybe Harbor Freight would be better, but I didn't stop because it's on the other side of the streets, which means it'll be slightly out of my way. This is the trouble when I get tired, I get cranky. Well, here we are. Decide to take a moment and walk down to the sand. I haven't seen a whole lot of sand lately, so take advantage of it now that I have it around. One of the great things about Crescent City is you've got lots of parking down near the water here and just great views. On the other side, kind of off in that direction, it's even more kind of dramatic. There's a bunch of rocks off the parking area, so really cool to look at. There's also a really cool lighthouse back here too. I will remind you though that since I'm tired, I am still grumpy, so I didn't want to drive to the lighthouse, didn't want to drive over to the other side of town. I think I need to get breakfast started. So I'm going to do just a real simple egg burrito, which suits me fine. But I've also got some potatoes I'm going to add to it. I just bought some of these multicolored potatoes. I really like these purple potatoes. Well, they look kind of more blue to me, but I don't know if they're healthier. I just like them. So this bag had a lot of the purple ones in there. I was kind of pleased about that. So I'll just chop up a few of these, and these are par cooked, by the way. Something I try to do from time to time, I just try to keep some extra ingredients on hand and par cooked, and then I can just quickly finish them off. And especially like in an egg burrito, it just makes it a little bit more filling. I got a little bit of olive oil and a little bit of butter in the pan. And then we'll just fry those off a little bit of pink salt on here too, I think. Season as you go, right? I always like to get my potatoes pretty toasty and lots of color on them, but kind of overdid it this time. Again, I'm tired. No, that's not really the reason. You know, the problem is when I move the camera and my microphone around, then things kind of get overheated in this pan. It's something I deal with a lot. And to be perfectly honest, a lot of times you see me only making burritos here on vlogs because it's just easier. There's less of a chance of doing this, creating a little bit of, a little smoke. If I'm paying attention, I can kind of control that. Now, it's not a problem because I got the door open and, the cooking odors and if there's any little bits of grease there is just going to go outside. If I don't have my door open, I just turn my vent fan on and then it sucks it up and out. It's why my vent fan is always dirty. It's just always covered in something. Because a lot of times I do cook with the door closed. But I try to cook with the door open. It's just so much better, easier. And so just toast off my tortilla here. Turn my flame back up a little bit. Get some color on the tortilla. I think this is the one thing that I learned working in the restaurants that's different from home cooking is if you work in a restaurant, you do all these little things that take an extra second, but it seems like when we're just cooking for ourselves at home, we kind of skip these things from time to time, and it makes a big difference in flavor. Okay, so then I've got some parsley here that is rough chopped, and the most important thing here, yellow birds. This is the jalapeno one. I've been eating so much of this one. I am almost through this, and I just bought this maybe 3 weeks ago. I'm gonna have to buy another one somewhere. Now, while this is on my mind, I just want to talk a little bit about this pan here that I'm using. I bought this about 2 years ago, I believe. This is a carbon steel pan, so it's very similar to a cast iron pan in a lot of ways. The most important one is that you do need to season it from time to time. And the first few months I had this pan, I'm not going to say I struggled with the seasoning, but it seemed like I needed to do a lot of seasoning on it. But now, using this pan all the time, I don't really need to do much of the seasoning. It kind of just takes care of itself. Like a meal like I did right now, I had olive oil and butter in here, and just the cooking process has kind of added a new layer of seasoning onto this pan. And I know that's a big thing that keeps a lot of people from getting rid of their non-stick pans, is they just want the ease of use of having that Teflon pan that they don't have to worry about. And I get it. I absolutely get it. I mean, I usually have always had one non-stick pan, especially for eggs or anything else that gets kind of sticky. But I have to say, if you do take just a little bit of time and invest in one of these pans, whether it be a cast iron pan or a carbon steel pan like I'm using, it pays off. And you get to a point where you just don't have to worry about the seasoning process, and you still have this kind of almost non-stick surface. You look at this, I've got a couple of little pieces of stuff that is stuck on there, and that is because I had a couple of little pieces of potato that were stuck, and then the egg kind of stuck to that. But cleaning this up is really easy, and basically I take this right off the stove and I put it into my sink, and I have this kind of stiff bristle brush that, did I say bristle or bristle? Bristle brush that I just give this a little scrub, and that's pretty much it. There are times I have to get a little bit more aggressive with it, but if you look at that, look, that's perfectly clean. So I'll just rinse this out with some water, and then I like to come through and just take a piece of paper towel and wipe this out a little bit. And I don't know if you can tell, but I haven't affected the seasoning with this cooking, so I still have a good layer of seasoning on here. And as soon as this cools down, I can put it away and it's ready for the next meal. This has been one of the best investments that I have made for myself. You know, get rid of Teflon if you possibly can. It'll be a little bit of work, but you will enjoy the process once you get through it and actually do it. Again, this pan has just been fantastic for me. So I don't talk about this pan enough, and I don't praise it enough. It's made by a company called De Beyer, but it's made in France, but you can find these pans everywhere nowadays. They're really easy to find and a little bit of work, but definitely worth it. Now let's get to that burrito. Well, I think it's time to hit the old dusty trail, get back on Route 101 here, and we're going to continue on the south. I have a spot I'm going to stop at. I think it's just a rest area, but it's a little nicer than a normal rest area, so usually I just pass on by the rest areas, but it seems like up here in the Pacific Northwest, they're a little nicer, at least nicer than what I'm accustomed to down in Southern California. So they're back on my list of a place to stop at if I need to. And it should provide not only a good place to get to, because it's only about an hour away, but there's some hiking trails around it too. So we should be able to get some nice scenery and a little walk in. And with that, let's go. So I was just checking the map again, and apparently my memory is not so good because it's telling me it's only about a half an hour away. And it's a half an hour away because there's a ton of road construction, which is going to slow us down quite a bit. I'm kind of wondering if I was thinking of another spot, another place. But we'll stick with the plan because I am almost out of coffee, so by the time we get there, I'm going to want to brew more coffee up.
1,000 feet, turn right onto US 101 South Bell Street.
At one time, you're able to camp all night right along the road here. Unfortunately, and I don't know when it happened, but at some point they came along and decided that it was just getting overused, and they put up the no overnight parking or camping signs. It's kind of a shame. It was a nice thing for a long time. I never actually got to park overnight here because they changed the rules by the time I got here to actually try it. They've got traffic stopped here. They've got the road being worked on. I think it's down to one lane up ahead. It was the same when I came through here a few months back. And I think this was the point a few months back that I also saw some snow on the road. I was heading south then, and I remember thinking, this is the right decision to leave the Pacific Northwest and head south because, well, I like the rain and the overcast. I don't much like the snow. But right now, this is pretty nice. I had to roll down the window so I can get a little fresh air in. It's just so incredible. The air is different up here with these trees. It's just very, very different, and it's not something that you can really describe. It's just something that you have to experience. I just love it up here. This is interesting. We have an escort this time. I don't remember this last time. I don't know if that's something new or not. Look at this fog. Isn't this crazy? I think this is especially weird to me because just a few days ago, I was up in Seattle and just roasting away. It was well over 80 degrees. Right now I'm wearing a sweater, sprinkling a little bit, and just kind of the opposite of what I was experiencing recently here. So who would have guessed that? Hot and sunny in Seattle, and in California it's chilly, cool, and a bit rainy. This is such a rugged area. I would guess that this road construction is just a never-ending task. I would think that it would just always be getting taken back over by the forest around here. And just a few feet on our right, of course, is the ocean, which I'm sure complicates things a bit too. One thing I really can't stand is having a bunch of people behind me, so I'm going to take this opportunity to just pull over for a second and let that big queue of vehicles that was stuck behind me to just go on by. They can go however fast they want to go. The truck speed limit is 30 miles an hour here, but I noticed that at least every time I'm driving on this stretch of the 101, none of them do that speed limit. So I'll take advantage of these little pull-offs and just let them go. And this is why I drive so slowly here. Well, one, it's safer, but two, look at that view. Look at that view. Well, now I remember why I usually skip this place and just keep going on by. It's usually because I miss it. You come up over this little hill and a bend after this dramatic scenery just a few feet back there, and I usually just zip on by and realize, oop, I just passed it. And when you're going in the other direction, if it's a busy day out, it'll be a little bit hard to get back across the road. So I'm glad I actually got the chance to pop this into my map and stop here. This would be a fine place for a cup of coffee. I just took advantage of the facilities here. Those are some of the cleanest rest stop restrooms I've ever seen. I always come back and use my own sink, though. They had plenty of soap and everything in there, and the water wasn't hot, though. And I don't really like using the hand blowers. I always feel kind of dirty after using the hand blowers, and that's all they had in there. So I just double wash. It's a little bit like belts and suspenders, I guess, but you know, when it comes to washing your hands and staying clean, what's a little bit of water, right? Anyway, I would like a cup of coffee right away, but let's maybe walk around a little bit first. It's really pretty here. So this gives us a little information here. We have a little trail down to the ocean and some nice information about the Yurok land here that we're on. It's very nice to see that documented. And obviously we have a little bit of road noise from the traffic going down 101 here. 101 is usually pretty busy. It's actually not very busy today. This is one of the more sparse days from my recollection, and I'm liking that. When I travel, it's always nice to get away from the traffic a little bit. Have I mentioned how much I like Northern California and the whole Pacific Northwest? This is just the most beautiful place I've ever seen, and I just never really want to leave this area. Started off the day a little tired and grumpy, but would you know, I'm not tired and grumpy anymore. I don't know why. So last night when I was thinking that this was an hour outside of Crescent City, I thought, well, this would be a good place to stop for an early lunch. I didn't think I'd be too hungry, but I figured, you know, if it's an hour away, I could do a little hike around and then at that point, make a little bit of lunch, then make some coffee, then get back on the road, continue on south. But now that it's not really that long since I had breakfast, I'm not quite so hungry. So I'm just going to make some coffee here, and then we'll hit the old dusty trail. One thing that you might want to be aware of if you are traveling out here is there's very limited cell service. The terrain out here is pretty rugged, and so it's just not good for cell service. So I do recommend you download an offline map with whatever map service you're using. I use Google Maps, so it does it easily. If you use Apple Maps, I believe they just announced that they're either have just enabled that feature or they will be enabling that feature in the future. But definitely helpful when you're out here, because you'll go for quite a little ways without getting any service whatsoever. Okay, I've got my road coffee. I'm ready to get back on the highway. One little issue I have with using a travel mug is I put the lid on top to keep it from splashing and spilling, but then it's a little bit too hot to drink right away, so then it just sits for a while. It's one little issue there. Not a terrible issue, it's just an issue, because I want to drink it right now. I'm ready for my coffee. I should point out something. If you have not been following my journey here and did not see the last vlog I had put up, you may be wondering why I'm heading south. And I did explain in the last vlog that I have an appointment, an important appointment. We'll talk about that when we get to it. It'll get vlogged in a whole video on its own. But I'm not necessarily in a hurry, but I do need to get back down to get that appointment taken care of, and so I kind of need to move a little bit. And it bugs me because I would like to stop and stay in places. This is one of those places that I would really like to stop and just check out a little bit more, especially because this is native land. I kind of feel like this is special here. And then just a little bit south of us is Redwood National Forest, which is, that's really cool too. We won't be stopping there because you need to make a reservation ahead of time, and I have not done that, so that's not an option at all. But maybe we can come back up here at some point once I get my stuff taken care of. I'm hoping that reservation goes well, but I'm not really sure how that's going to go yet. So I'm not going to talk any more about that, and I'm not going to think any more about that because it's kind of stressing me out a little bit. But what is not stressing me out is this drive. I just really like this area, and this is like one of the only areas that I really ever want to just stay put for a long length of time. I just really like it here. Do I look tired? Because I'm feeling tired. I'm about ready to stop driving, but I have stopped here at another rest stop, kind of taken on our theme of the rest stops are much better up here in the Pacific Northwest, because this one, just outside of Trinidad, no, not that Trinidad, there is a Trinidad, California. This one has free water, and so I always like to stop at this one and fill up my water tanks. So I have my main water tank filled up, and I filled up my backup tank, and then I took advantage of having the water here. I filled up my Berkey filter, and you can see here that the water's a little bit cloudy, and that's okay with me because it's perfectly clear once it runs through the filter. But if you're trying to drink water without a filter, you may notice a little bit of cloudiness to it. Now, I'm tired, but being here at Trinidad, really want to take you down and show you the town because it is beyond beautiful. Well, this is not the perfect weather for this, but you get an idea of why I say this is just awesome out here. On a sunny day, the water is just unbelievably gorgeous. And that area out there with all those rocks is just incredible. So while it's not the perfect weather to be viewing this area, you still get a pretty good glimpse of just how crazy beautiful this is. Well, I am always happy to be back here in Trinidad for a little bit, even though this will be a short few minutes trip this time. I don't normally park here overnight. You notice I say normally. I have parked here in Trinidad overnight a few times, but I'm not going to do that tonight. I think I should get moving along and go find a better place to park. So I think I will end this here. So thanks for hanging out with me today. And thanks for watching. I really appreciate it.